What is up, down, and sideways, you beautiful individuals? It is League Unlocked. I am Eric, here with Mark. We are now in the in-between the knockout rounds and the group stage of MSI 2021, and it feels weird. No games, Mark. It's been like 5 straight days of games.
Not only 5 straight days of games, 5 straight days of the best of one. So it's been games after games after games after games after games, my man. It has been nonstop. It has been fantastic. Yes, everybody does need a little breather, including
the players
teams.
are happy to have some days off.
Absolutely. The teams, the broadcast crew, everybody involved in this in Iceland is happy to get a little bit of a break, a little bit of a recharge. Not too much, though. We got to hit back on the rift pretty soon, and we got some big matches to deal with in the semifinals.
Yeah, and before we preview all those 2 tasty semifinal matchups, we got to relive the group stage a little. We're going through the All-Pro, or our All-Pro, for that group stage, and a lot of the stats here are including both the Rumble round and, again, what I'm calling the play-in stage. But as is tradition with events like this, when you have the top 2 teams being the big favorites in RNG and Damwon, they're going to be highly represented on the All-Pro list.
Absolutely, and especially when they perform, right, to the expectations to the most degree.
Yeah.
A lot of these players, a lot of these individual star players on these teams, you're going to have to see them in an all-pro list like this, but that doesn't mean that there isn't some people and some players challenging for certain positions on an all-pro list like this, and let alone others that deserve their recognition, deserve some praise and acknowledgement for what they were able to do, even if they might not be the number 1 pick for your all-pro squad.
So the bottom half of the map for this all-pro team, I think, is the one that's less arguable. There's less debate to it. You start with the bot lane, and it is the duo for RNG, Gala and Ming. No question, I think Gala was the best AD carry in the group stage. The only one you can put in his conversation is Doggo.
Yeah, Doggo, to me, would be that runner-up that you have to be talking about. And what runner-up that we are talking about, the 18-year-old
he was fantastic.
Substitute. 18-year-old substitute that comes in and is able to perform the way he does and gel with the group. The progress that they have made as 5 is really impressive. His individual performance and what he has been able to shine has certainly been impressive. And then when we talk about who is our actual pick, it only gets better with Gala and what he's been able to do. It's a continuation of all the bright spots and best moments of RNG's spring split back home in the LPL. That's what you saw from him in his gameplay right here at MSI and what he's been able to do. There's a reason you haven't heard too many calls for people going, oh my God, we need Uzi to come back. We want the savior, Uzi, the God. Gala's been more than fine in that type of role. And when you're not calling for a legend, an icon like that after they've left, you're doing your job.
Yeah, I think the LPL just breeds these AD carries even when Uzi's not there. They've trained against him. I mean, he's been on a lot of different teams as Gala, but he's definitely found his footing here on RNG. His buddy Ming, as I mentioned, is the support, and with Beryl having a little bit too much fun on the Rift in a lot of these games for Damwon, similar could be said for Kaiser. He's had some great moments, also some suspect moments. Again, you're probably talking about Kaiwing as the runner-up, and you might even want to throw in Vulcan for Cloud9.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to put Vulcan into that conversation. I know, maybe the rest of the community in the major regions want to have a negative opinion about Cloud9 and everything else and be upset. But when you really examine how they played and what they were able to do, there's no way that you can't have this conversation specifically about supports without including Vulcan and the contributions that he was able to do and how he played against his counterparts, right? Against the rest of the supports in this event. He certainly did shine. The number 1, as you said, has got to be Ming. And when we talk about Ming, well, we don't talk about Ming too often. He goes under the radar alongside Gala, but that is just really, to me, a shame because what Ming is able to do, what he has done for the course of his career, of course, he is a superstar down in that bottom lane, and he has continued that with some incredible consistency in his performances.
We've seen them win 2v2 straight up with no jungle pressure, and then we've also seen Ming run around the entire map and influence all the other lanes. He's been able to do both playstyles super well so far at the event. Then we get to the mid lane, which, again, I'm not taking any arguments. It's Showmaker who was the best performing one through the group stage. And again, if we're talking runner-ups or honorable mentions, I think you're going Humanoid.
Yeah, you can go with Humanoid. I think Maple is someone else that you could have a conversation about. I don't think nearly to the degree that you would be someone like Humanoid or what Showmaker as our pick is.
And it ain't
but
perks.
I think that
it ain't perks.
No, it's not perks, unfortunately, for a lot of fans. But yes, these three deserve their recognition, and specifically to me, as we look at them, to stand above what someone like Maple and Humanoid were doing, which were very good performances, is exactly what we need to be talking about with Showmaker. Because not only was it a level above what Humanoid and Maple were doing, 2 levels above that. So it wasn't just taking that one next step, it was all the way to the max level of elite. Is what we are seeing from Showmaker. It's a continuation of his form in the LCK that we had seen throughout all of spring. He is really, really continuing to ramp up and dominate in so many different aspects. He has been incredibly impressive.
And we've seen him be a team fighting machine, skirmishing machine for Damwon in the LCK. But it seems like as the only Korean representative, he kind of stole the soul of Chovy a little bit as well, because at MSI, his CS and laning numbers have been absolutely bonkers.
It is a little bit different than we have seen from any time of Damwon's growth, right? Their surge into the scene and the way that they've grown to become world champions. This really is the isolated Showmaker show for Damwon right now, and how he's been able to perform. And yeah, the resources, they're flowing exactly the same way.
Now, just, we praise Showmaker a ton. He was the best player for Damwon in the group stage, but he's still got some other guys that you gotta acknowledge. And those 3 mid ADC support, as I said, were the easier ones to choose. Top and jungle, I think not only are there honorable mentions, but there's definitely some debate and argument as to who you would want to put as the best performing one. We went with Canyon, but there's really, Wei had great moments. Obviously, earlier on in the tournament, it was some weaker competition. Elyoya looked like he was on pace to finish there, but kind of faltered a little bit on the second half. Second third of this.
I don't even know if we need to limit to the second half. I think we can just isolate it on the Rumble pick and say maybe the Rumble was a bit of an issue there.
Yeah.
That's something that
it wasn't just Elyoya who didn't look great on Rumble, by the way.
And I was gonna say that's something that needs to be discussed about this, because when we were talking about mid ADC and support, you're talking about the fantastic lengths that the excellency that we have seen. And I think when you start talking about jungle and top, that's not to take away from the star power what they were able to accomplish. Sure, I think we saw a lot more mistakes, a couple of more variances in the performances, even of the people that we want to put in to our all-pro list right now and what we've seen from them. For me, the answer has to be Canyon. At the end of the day, what we saw from him, he has got to be my all-pro jungler alongside Showmaker there from the mid lane. But what he was able to do and what he was doing, that's what you want to see. The level of dominance, the level of control that he was able to put out was certainly to another degree than anybody else at this event. And then again, as you said, you want to have that conversation about anybody being a runner-up, and I think this one is a lot closer. For me, it would be Wei and what he's shown and the growth and beating expectations for us. Even seeing him throughout the LPL spring certainly was a better showing for him at this international event.
And I think the only reason people might be hesitant to put Canyon in this spot is because I think coming into this event, people were expecting him to just completely dumpster steamroll, not even close in any of these jungle matchups. He didn't dominate to that level. He was still probably the best jungler, but because it wasn't as dominant as maybe people were expecting, they're probably hesitate to put him there. Top lane now. It's 3 people. And the bonus one, I wanted to put him in, Mark. I just couldn't do it because there were too many NA moments. I wanted to give Fudge the shout out in that top lane spot, but we did end up going with Khan.
To go with Khan, but we got to spend a little bit of time giving some praise to Fudge and talking about it. I like that you mentioned that there were a couple too many NA moments, because I think that is something that can't get lost in this praise and this turnaround. This excitement about Fudge's development, continued development, is missing out on some of these mistakes, and the level of play that we sometimes do get to see certainly is not up to the level of all pro. Some of these performances absolutely were up to the level of all pro, and that is important to recognize and give credit as well.
If it was only Lee Sin games we were judging.
It was only Lee Sin. Fudge was absolutely the best. Fudge was the best Lee Sin from top lane to jungle to mid lane that we've seen at this event
100%.
so far, saying something. But when you're talking about the All-Pro winner, that has to be Khan and what he was able to show, the dominance. I think Xiaohu is someone else that you can also talk about in this type of regard.
Yeah, he needs to be in the conversation as well.
He needs to have to be there, but I think as far as who is my cut, who is going to be my guy to be that All-Pro, has to be Khan. Some of the dominance and the bloodthirsty dominance that he's able to show in that top side and get things done for Damwon. Yes, very much was the showmaker show, and talking about Canyon having his role. For me, you don't as well get to this point without Khan putting in a couple of those level of performances and turning up the heat a little bit.
Quick final shout out to Fudge, because he did play the most champions in the top lane with 10, throwing the karmas in there to really, complement the team. So good for him for playing so many diverse champions.
Hey, champion pool is absolutely got to be something when you're evaluating players. When you're looking at the focus of an event like this, maybe pare it down a little bit to get some strength.
Yeah, we know Xiaohu and Khan, both disgusting Gnar players. We'll have to settle maybe in a best of 5 for who's actually better on that champion. The aftermath of Cloud9 losing, not making it to top 4, I don't know if it'll be felt in the summer split, but it's probably going to be felt by 2022. And we are talking the LCS import rule, because there was some news. This has been ongoing for months, before the spring split even started. A lot of people were talking that the owners wanted to either reduce or remove the import restrictions in the LCS. And then there was speculation that if Cloud9 doesn't make top 4 at this event, then the owners are really going to want it, which, again, that having any impact on the decision is completely ridiculous. But if this does end up happening, the LCS is ruined, right? That's it.
It's so brutal that we have to keep talking about this type of situation, and in various ways that we have to talk about this situation that it comes up, right? So number one, talking about it as a reactionary move to any type of failure or disappointment from Cloud9 at this MSI is, why is that the connection that these owners?
Blabber didn't play as well, which means North American players are terrible. Wait, didn't he win
what else are we going to do? We're just going to bring over JDG and pay, this type of scenario when you're talking about what we want to be doing, expanding the import rule. Well, how much more can it really expand? Because we've already got imports all over the place with rosters. You're talking about the biggest points of Cloud9, right? The number one points that we want. We're talking about perks. Oh, there's an import. We're talking about Zvet. Oh, there's an import. We're talking about Fudge. That's NA all the way, right?
Stealing from minor regions too, right?
Exactly. So how much more, can we import and still beat North America at the end of the day? And how much more can you import and realize, well, every step of importing more has not necessarily improved any type of results. It's actually looking within and investing more so in these type of regards, these opportunities, putting them forth and going through growing pains. These type of things that we talk about, they're not easy, but they certainly are, to me, the better path, the better option, the more honorable option than to just go all out on import.
I mean, already looking now, like the top 2 teams in North America, the finals had 3 North American players, right? They had it was, I mean, I guess because you had Greg subbed in, you had 4. So there you go. Or Armeo, excuse me. But I still think it almost seems like a lazy fix to the league. Instead of developing your own ecosystem and system like the EU Masters to build up and foster talent, you just say, why don't we just throw money at already established players and just assume that they'll be just as good changing their entire lives and uprooting to an entirely new situation? Whatever.
Especially when we've also had instances throughout, let alone League of Legends, throughout eSports, about seeing ownership, right? That says they're going to make this commitment. They make that commitment of paying the money to bring them all over. And then they don't pay for translators. They don't set up certain other things to make these players feel at home in a whole different environment, a different culture. These type of things are all parts of it when you want to be talking about the import restrictions, import rules, and better life for people coming in. It just doesn't add up. This idea, this mindset of needing to continue down this path, continue expanding down these path and loosening these restrictions, you're going to lose the whole region, let alone the identity of the region. You're going to lose this region as a whole. It's just going to be a cash stop.
I'm gonna tell you what I believe the number one issue, or one of the biggest issues, is with the LCS as a region. And we've heard people talk about solo queue, quality of solo queues not as good as the other regions, sure. But what's also not the quality of other regions is any scouting that organizations do. Because one of the reasons the solo queue is so bad, you look at the Korean server in particular, and it's a viable path for these aspiring pro players to go to just dominate solo queue and get up the ladder, because even teams like T1 are paying attention to solo queue, and if you're dominating, if you're getting to number one on the ladder, they're going to give you tryouts. They're going to potentially sign you to their team. That doesn't seem to be the case in the LCS, even in EU. A guy like Magic Felix, who's dominated in solo queue, he's gotten the attention of teams and is now playing in the LEC. Solo queue in the LCS, the only thing you're getting attention of is streamers and YouTube videos, right?
And you know, when you look and you talk about the EU Masters, right, and these viable paths for people from solo queue going through, then you see that, let alone these EU Masters teams, but then the LEC teams are willing to go through that pain, willing to go through those investments, the time, the growth that needs to be done, as opposed to just, this has got to be the finished package right away. When you're looking over at the LCS and you're talking about these import restrictions being loosened, it doesn't make sense on so many levels. But then you add the level of, well, this is almost the period that we've seen the most growth from actual domestic NA players on the scene of you know, the potential that they can offer to certain teams. You've got Spica, Tactical, Blabber, as we've talked about, being that guy that has established himself, at least at Vulcan as well, at least in North America. And you talk about what you want to go through in the development process, and you're just, well, okay, let's replace him with an import. You know, bring me in a world champion. This is not the fix that we have seen, and we've seen those fixes fail time and time again in this region.
And you're already seeing viewership dips in the LCS, right? EU Masters was getting, the finals were getting similar to the LCS finals. That would be unheard of a couple of years ago, and I gotta think that some of that is the storylines within the region. Every year it just seems to be recycled. This year it's Perks comes in, can he dominate North America? These are like the main storylines. There's not like the old days of NA where there's these actual rivalries within NA players.
Yeah, and it just, again, this is a topic that you can, you know, beat the dead horse, right, on so many different topics that you want to talk about in this different arguing points. At the end of the day, there's no way to me to convince me to be on the side of loosening any restrictions, any type of more, and let alone, as we talked, for this to be some type of reaction to Cloud9's performance, or underperformance at MSI. I don't know what is going on with the rest of the, you know, NA LCS owners.
You should be trying to rip off EU Masters as much as you possibly can. Bring in the collegiate scene, which is already developed. We've seen them kind of doing that with this amateur plus academy combo, but stop putting fully rostered veteran LCS players on some of these squads, because that's not the way to develop and foster this upcoming talent. They're doing it wrong in NA. The best Reddit comment I saw, though, was the import rules should be changed so that every team has to have two NA players. That is money. NA guaranteed to win.
If we've got enough NA players to go around to fill these roles on these teams, absolutely, that's the way to level the play.
Well, you might not. That's the problem. You might have to be diving deep in academy instead of saying, who can we import that's really good and fit our roster? They're like, oh, who can we hide on this roster?
Hey, all I know is when you enter into that world, we're getting solo trying out for the top eSports opening in the top lane. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, Khan, sorry, you're being replaced by your boy Dokla.
There we go. Let's go.
Hopefully, it seems like the import rule is going to be completely changed, though, because if all 10 owners want it, I don't know what exactly Riot can do.
Now, it doesn't matter how much we're going to yell about it. They're going to change it.
It doesn't matter. We don't have any say in it. We're just here to yell and rant about things. Speaking of yelling and ranting about things, we're up in arms. We're devastated. Damwon Kia, they finished first. They get to pick who their opponent is. They should have the best schedule for the semifinals dating back to 2016. The first seed at MSI always plays the semifinals on the Friday. They get the Saturday off, and then they play in the finals on the Sunday until 2021, because now Damwon is playing Saturday. They're going to have to play back-to-back games, back-to-back days, assuming that they win, and everyone is furious, Mark.
I know conspiracy theories are hot. Very much everyone wants to be in on the latest conspiracy. There's no conspiracy here, guys. This is not Riot taking the RNG money to make sure that we're going to get the extra day for the boys in gold. Nuh-uh. This is just simply a matter of some pretty poor, actually, planning at the end of the day when you talk about it from Riot's perspective.
Yeah.
We can dive into that. But for me, this is a non-story, you guys. Don't let yourselves get too hyped up or worked up about it.
So it is obviously a disadvantage, I would assume, to have to play back-to-back best of fives. It's nice to have the day off. You can watch the opposing team, obviously. And the reasoning behind why the first seed doesn't have the better schedule, and Ashley Kang and some other people have reached out on Twitter. Riot's reply was, to minimize the impact on regional splits post-MSI, we chose this schedule to account for varying global COVID-19 testing timelines and traveling logistics. So basically, I think it's sounding like if RNG played on the Saturday and went home, then I think the LPL would start earlier than the 14-day quarantine they need to go back to China. But that's assuming that if RNG loses on the Saturday, people are assuming they're going to get to the finals on the Sunday. So yeah, Riot should have just had a 14-day leeway regardless of how the tournament ended.
Yeah, that's the strangest thing, right? When you look at all the time that has been provided, let alone the time to plan for this event, not having an MSI a year ago.
Months and months.
It doesn't add up to slip up on a simple detail, let alone to slip on a simple detail like the 14-day quarantine, and to slip up on it where it has to match up exactly onto this type of day is very poor planning in a lot of regards. When you want to talk about it, I think there is a very legitimate, some benefit to having that extra day off, whether it is just simply about rest, recharging, unplugging from the game and stepping away, or as a lot of people would say, from the coaching side, from that scouting, looking at what your opponent is doing in their series, the individual players, the performances, these type of things can matter. Sure, to various degrees of values, I'll accept that. What if it's going to be the difference between a Damwon and RNG? I think that there's more than enough reasons in skill and expressions of that skill on the rift between these two teams that is not the reason why one would be the victor over the other.
I mean, if anything, RNG is the team that's more experienced with turning around so many best of fives when you look at how insane the schedule was for the LPL playoffs. But you've heard a lot of players talk about it, and I think the bigger thing was just this schedule in itself was pretty insane, this MSI.
We opened the show talking about day after day after day after day.
It's great for us, terrible for players.
Absolutely great for us, great for fans at home, but certainly is a bit of a thing on the players. And especially when you talk about what we have seen, any tournaments in the past, the way that they've been organized, this has certainly been very different and very new approach. And I would have to agree with the players maybe to switch things up at some point.
We'll be previewing those semifinal action before they get underway, but that is it today for League Unlock. Eric and Mark here with you guys. As always, thanks for hanging out with us. We'll catch you on the flippity flip.